Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 106 of Midweek Metagame. I'm here MTG, only joined by one of my regular co-hosts this week, Gabriel Nassif.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
And we also have a special guest this week. Previous MPL member, now Rivals, as well as Modern Fanatic, as well as, I guess, the Legacy Elves Master. We are joined by nonetheless, Reid Duke. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Gab, Harry? Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for having me on. My second time on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. I think it only makes sense to have you on the podcast with GP Vegas recently happening, as well as some Worlds announcements. And also, everyone kind of wants to know what's happening in Reid Duke's life with the MPL Rivals, whatever. So we're going to be getting into all of that today. I think that only makes sense. But before we get into anything, the podcast, we are brought to you by Card Market. For those who don't know what Card Market is, it is a marketplace online to buy anything Magic the Gathering related. It can be deck boxes, sleeves, singles, accessories. You can sell stuff on there. It doesn't even have to be Magic the Gathering. It can be other card games. So please go check them out. They do support the cast and get us here every single week. As well as if you would like to personally support the podcast, the best place to do so is at patreon.com/midweekmetagame. No pressure to do so, but that's the best place to support us. But anyways, we're done with intros. We're interested in a deep conversation with Reid. So obviously, I mentioned, I guess GP Vegas, or whatever you like to call it, was this past weekend. So why don't you kind of let us all know how the event was and also what modern deck you played?
Sure, yeah. So I went out to Vegas. I was there for about a week, and then the tournament itself lasted for 3 days. But speaking personally, it was just awesome. I hadn't really gotten out of the house much in the past couple of years, and then being able to be out there, like back playing paper Magic, and see a lot of new faces, a lot of old friends. It was just kind of exactly what I wanted, and overall really positive experience. There were two main events, Modern and Limited. I competed in the Modern, and the deck I picked was Golgari Yawgmoth.
Cool. Was there any anxiety going there, or were you any reservations, or were you 100% just super excited to travel and go play a Magic tournament?
Well, it was definitely like some stepping out of my comfort zone, especially given that I hadn't been around big crowds in a long time. There was a little bit of culture shock, I guess you can call it. But hey, at the bottom line, I just love Magic so much. I love competing at Magic. Like, they could host Pro Tour Mordor, and I would get there 3 days early to beat the jet lag. So there's no question for me about attending.
Cool. And how did you end up settling on the Yawgmoth deck? Because obviously, I'm guessing you wish you could have maybe played Junt, and there's the Junt Ragavan, Junt Sagavan or the Saga, etc. That does pretty well. What was your testing process like, or your deck selection choice like?
Well, yeah, I was really on the fence up till like literally the morning that I showed up at the site, and I mean, the big problem was that like I didn't know what the best deck was in Modern, but also card availability can be pretty big in Modern, and I have a fairly extensive Modern collection, but I hadn't kept up, so I didn't have any cards from Modern Horizons 2 or anything that's been printed in the last couple of years. So there was also this overlying factor of like, well, how much money am I willing to spend to complete my deck? Are the dealers even going to have the cards I need? This and that. So, I was prepared with some backup plans, but my front runners were pretty much Death Shadow and Golgari Yawgmoth. And for a while, I was going to play Death Shadow, and my buddy TBS, Ben Sec, was like, he messaged me, he's like, oh, I'm going to be there too. What should I play? This and that. And for a while, we were both going to play Jund Death Shadow. But he tried it out and didn't have a great experience. And I was kind of on the fence anyway. So I'm like, okay, that's maybe the little nudge over the ledge that I need to get off of Death Shadow and play Golgari Yawgmoth instead. And thankfully, the dealers had the cards that I needed, at least to complete like the core of the deck. And yeah, that was that for me. Spent the morning all going to every single different dealer trying to piecemeal like the last 10 or 12 cards that I needed.
Classic. As far as you could tell, was there a lot of issues with card availability when you were talking to people? Or were they kind of limited in their deck choices?
Well, I overestimated how much card availability was going to be an issue. Like I thought, 25% of the field was going to be there playing Burn because it's the cheapest. I mean, Burn's pretty good, but it's also the cheapest deck, and it hasn't changed much. So people probably had it from the old days. And I was like really preparing for that dynamic, but that was not actually how it played out. I think I have a tendency to underrate the collector aspect of MTG, and almost everybody that I faced had a complete top tier deck, including a couple opponents who had like fully foiled out, Urza Saga decks, like which was really impressive to me. But yeah, people definitely showed up prepared, and I guess I underestimated the competition in that way.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I want to know is with the new kind of addition of companion into Magic, did you ever have anyone forget to reveal their companion?
A little bit. I think everyone was kind of on the same page in the sense that like, hey, we're just back playing paper Magic after a couple years off, and some of these people probably never played a Magic tournament before, and we're here to have fun. And for the most part, I didn't see people raking each other over the coals over like little mistakes. So sometimes it'd be like, we take our mulligans, and then the opponent's like, oh, by the way, I have Luris. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Maybe that's not the proper procedure, but that's totally cool. And then a lot of times, I think technically you would have to announce your companion every single game of a match, but sometimes people would just like leave it out off to the side, and it would be pretty clear that they wanted to reveal it, each individual game. So it was, manageable and somewhat casual, and the event ran pretty smoothly in that way.
That's nice to hear. Are you a side event type of person, or were you just playing the modern main event?
Well, from what I remember of the old style Grand Prix, it would usually be like a dedicated day where the site was open before the main event started, but they didn't have that this time. So I just showed up Friday morning at 8, and the event started at 9, so that was that. Sunday I was free, so just kind of hung out and watched the limited event and played a side draft and stuff like that. I do enjoy just being at the convention center and engaging with Magic in whatever way I can. I got some cards signed by the artists.
Yeah. Did it feel much different than old paper events?
No, it felt kind of like we were able to pick up where we had left off. I mean, of course, there's extra safety precautions, and everyone was wearing masks and things like that. So that, it felt a little bit different in that way. But for the most part, it was, just a cool Grand Prix Magic Fest event, kind of like the ones we remember from the old days.
Yeah. Did you have more people come up to you than usual, or could you not really remember what it was like, so you can't really compare because of the stream, even though you were already really popular before you started streaming? Or maybe less because of COVID and people were a bit more
I would say the same number of people coming up to introduce. Sunday I was there, and I didn't have my like CFB jersey with my name on it, and so maybe between the mask and not wearing like a branded shirt, it's possible some people didn't recognize me. But the Friday and Saturday when I was competing, I had the Team CFB jersey that has my name on the back and stuff, and a lot of people came up to meet me for a range of reasons, either to chat or to get a photo or to get a signature or just to say like, oh, hi, like nice to meet you in person, whatever. But yeah, it was really cool to see a lot of people who had watched my stuff over the pandemic and whatnot.
Yeah. Your tournament went well too. Close, really, you got really close to top 8. I think you were in contention. You were playing a win in the last round, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was, 11-2 going into the last round. But, it was a big event, so there wasn't really much room for like intentional draws in the last round. You kind of had to win. to get there. But I got defeated pretty badly by Amulet Titan in the winning in round. So that was that.
I mean, into no buys, right? Or did some people have buys?
No buys. Yep. So that's one thing that was much different from the Grand Prix. I guess I had been spoiled because when I was like platinum status or MPL or whatever it might be, I would usually get to start the event with 3 buys. But this time it was like, totally even playing field. I have no advantage over anybody else, and then couldn't hack it apparently without the buys.
And that's still pretty good finish. 11-3, not bad. Also, you hadn't played that deck at all, right? The Yawgmoth deck, or did you? Have you played it before?
I played a bit online and had a good experience, but man, that's the type of deck where playing it for the first time in paper, you're not doing yourself any favors because there's a lot to keep track of, and the games are pretty complex. But I basically just took the approach of like I'm gonna take everything super slow and just announce everything that's happening and make sure I don't get ahead of myself and trip over my own shoelaces or whatever. And especially once we got deep into the tournament, I was getting the hang of the mechanics of the deck pretty well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you play much Modern recently because of all the Arena Pro Tours. Was there anything that you kind of learned from the format that you didn't really know after this tournament that you think is kind of something that the listeners should be keeping track of? Because also a lot of people that listen to the podcast don't get time to test as much as we do.
Good question. I do think Modern is quite balanced and very challenging right now. I would say I haven't really like sunk my teeth into Modern in the way I would if there was Pro Tour or World Championship, but I've kept a pretty solid background, playing like a handful of leagues per month kind of thing and trying out some different decks. This event, I guess I gained a better respect for what some of the decks are capable of. Like, I really got beat badly by Amulet Titan in the final round with some super impressive draws there. And the Death Shadow decks looked good. I got to finally play against Dress Down with Death Shadow, which is a pretty nasty combination. And of course, Colossus Hammer, just how scary it is when they play a quick Urza Saga and Sigarda's Aid in papers was a new experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that the Titan deck is super swingy in my experience. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't do anything, and then other times it just has crazy turn 3 kills. And I've been also impressed by Grix's Shadow list. Not played a ton, but I feel like it does well. But
I suppose I could tell you exactly what happened in the game against Amulet Titan. Was I had really good draws myself. Like, I have absolutely nothing to complain about because my deck delivered for me, and I had beaten Amulet Titan previously in the event. So game 1, I'm on the play, and turn 3, I pass the turn with Yawgmoth and like effectively 6 creatures. So I couldn't actually combo off because I didn't have any mana left. I couldn't win the game. But I'm like, okay, I could kill a Titan if my opponent plays it, right? So like by sacrificing 6 creatures. So I feel like I have most things covered. But my opponent's draw was Amulet, Dryad of the Elysian Grove. There was a Valakut in there somewhere, by the way. Titan, search for like, say 2 bounce lands, untap, float mana. Second Titan, search for Slayer's Stronghold and Forest Garrison. Give them both haste. So now I'm like, okay, I was prepared for 1 Titan, but now there's literally 3 creatures on the battlefield that all kill me. So, I was just dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rough playing for top 8 too. But yeah, looked like the meta was pretty diverse, kind of similar to what you see online. I didn't feel like there was a huge difference. Is that also your experience?
Yeah, that was my experience. It was pretty diverse. The deck that I faced the most, or I guess I should say the archetype I faced the most, was just kind of like red, black, X with Lurrus as a companion, whether it be Jund, Rakdos, Death Shadow, Burn I did face once. So a lot of Lurrus companions.
Are you note that, Harry, for the like pause? But are you getting some background? Is it your cat, Reid, that's like messing around, or?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
It's a
it's
new kid.
fine. I guess there's nothing. Right, probably like dishes or something.
He'll probably get tired out and fall
Yeah.
asleep soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, little background noise from Reid's cat. Sorry about that. Yeah. Any stories that stood out? Interactions? Something about the weekend that stood out for you? Fun story or just what? Yeah. I don't know. Like that.
Well, I guess I could tell you how the tournament started, which is that I showed up completely unprepared, because I had to purchase all the cards that had been printed from Modern Horizons 2, and I actually didn't even have Yawgmoths itself. So what I did was I didn't submit my deck list the night before, which I normally would do, but my thought process was like, well, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the cards I need. I'm not even sure what deck I'm going to submit, so I'll wait till the morning of. So I show up there's a bit of a line to get through the proof of vaccination like stage of getting into the hall. But I get in and I have to go to like 6 or 7 or maybe even more different dealer booths to get all the cards that I need. But I finally did, except for one, except nobody had Outland Liberator. So I had to swap my sideboard Outland Liberator for a Reclamation Sage. So I guess in that sense, it's good that I didn't submit my deck list ahead of time, so I would have had to change it.
Yeah.
But then I go up to the main stage and I'm like, hey, could I get a deck list? They're like, no paper deck lists. You have to submit online. So I have my cell phone with no internet access, just like trying to do it like on data with, typing out all the card names on the little touchpad of my phone. And of course I keep making mistakes, or like their page gets an error. I have to reload it, start over. And I'm scrambling. It's like 8:56. I'm like, oh, come on, get the deck list in before 9 o'clock. And I finally did, like, just barely get it in. And I got my pairing, and I go to the table, and my opponent's not there. So I take the opportunity to like kind of double check like my physical deck list against the one I had submitted. And I realized I made a mistake. I hadn't included, I think I had one too many lands. I hadn't included Kitchen Finks or something like that. So I'm like, oh man, like I don't want to play the whole tournament with the wrong deck list. Let me try to change it. So I'm there like scrambling to resubmit the deck. My opponent's late because he also had some issues submitting his deck list. And finally, I get everything worked out. My opponent shows up. The judge walks over and is like, all right, well, your opponent was late to the table, so he's going to start with a game loss. And I'm like, okay, that's not really fair, because like I was also late, even though I was sitting at the table. I was like still doing the exact same thing my opponent was doing in terms of getting the deck list in. So I just kind of like confessed that to the judge. And the judge is like, okay, like this is not normally the way we handle things, but since you both were late, I'm just going to like kind of pretend I didn't hear this, and like you guys could do your thing or whatever. So we started off with no game losses, which was great. You don't want to start the tournament with like a feel bad like that. And then I won the match on turn 4 of extra turns. So it's like many possible disasters avoided at many different spots there, but it ended up like we did reach the fair conclusion of the match, and we were good to go.
Yeah, I would have been so anxious. I have the nightmare, where you're in a feature match or you don't have your deck list. The tournament's about to start and you go for your deck and you realize you have proxies in it still, or you're missing cards and you're still scrambling to get your cards. I hadn't had that nightmare in a while, and I had it the other day. I don't know why.
Later in the event, I decided that I wanted to double sleeve my deck. So I'm, maybe I'm not experienced enough in this, or I was a little rusty, but I'm like, okay, double sleeving should take roughly twice as long as single sleeving, right? Not correct. Double sleeving takes way longer. Just, those perfect fit sleeves are like a nightmare to navigate. So I ended up like the round getting called when I had like 2/3 of my deck double sleeved, and like my sideboard still sleeved in the old sleeves, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm scrambling. But I had a couple of friends come over and help me get it sorted out. But it reminds me of those nightmares you always have about getting called to your match and you're just totally unprepared to get started.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a recurring nightmare I used to have a lot, and maybe nightmare is a bit strong, but it's not pleasant. Because it happens to me in real life too. When I don't show up very prepared, and I'm usually scrambling for cards and get anxious. But all right, cool. And you got to see Huey again. Your thing was Huey.
Mm-hmm.
Got to see who else was there of your good friends.
Well, Shahar actually was. Shahar and Huey lived together, and Shahar was like not gonna play the event because he wasn't really familiar with the new cards. He hadn't played in a while, whatever. Wasn't that interested in it. But I was kind of working on him. I was like, dude, at least play the sealed deck event. And finally, he has a really good Shahar line, which is like, okay, fine, I'll play the sealed deck. It's gonna be fun, like the pre-release. And Huey goes, Shahar, it's not really the pre-release if everyone else has been practicing for 2 weeks and you're seeing the cards for the first time. But he was a good sport about it. He shows up in Shahar, of course, like he's a 2-time world champion winner. His skills are not in question in any way. But he hadn't played any Crimson Vow at all. I had played a lot, and I was like, okay, Shahar, here's what you do. Rakdos is the best. Just take every card that says vampire on it. And he's like, got it, I could do that. So he opens a really good like red-black sealed deck, plays Rakdos for the whole first day, and then both of the drafts, he's like, all right, like I'm only gonna look at the Rakdos cards, just take all the vampires. And he went like 5-0 in the drafts and made top 8 and stuff. So it was really funny.
Oh, he actually made top 8 of the event.
Yeah,
that's sick. Somehow I didn't hear about it.
Rocked it.
I mean, they didn't talk about there's not a ton of coverage, no official coverage. But, oh, that's awesome.
He literally hadn't played with a non-red or black Crimson Vow card until the top 8.
Yeah, Shahar, I feel like Shahar probably gets underestimated. I think maybe I've been guilty of underestimating Shahar just because he's just kind of always all goofy and kind of happy-go-lucky, and you maybe don't take him as seriously.
One thing that's definitely true about Shahar is he plays the games very, very, very well, even if he's coming in less prepared or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's how little coverage share was, I guess. I didn't even know Shahar made a top 8 of the limited event. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I guess now that we've kind of talked about Vegas, maybe we should just talk about the modern format in general.
Yeah, we could talk a bit about modern. I just want more Vegas stories. Where do you guys go at? I miss Vegas. I haven't been in many years. I used to go every year ever since I was 21. I went every year for the World Series, and recently they started having the Vegas GP during the World Series, usually in summer. I never got to play in the main events of the GPs because I'd rather just play the World Series poker event usually. But it was fun to have everyone in town, and it was kind of nice, I guess, to have the event in November instead of super. Is the weather really nice in November? Was the weather just kind of perfect?
It was perfect. In fact, I'd been to Vegas a handful of times before in my life, but always in like the dead of summer when it's like you almost can't go outside because it's just so hot and dry and everything. But the weather was absolutely perfect. This time we went hiking in the I guess you call them the Red Rock Mountains, which was really scenic and awesome. Just totally ideal time to be there.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's because the convention centers are cheaper, so maybe that's why they do the World Series in summer. I think summer, like in Vegas, is just not very busy, so it's like that and Valentine's Day weekend. I don't know if you ever noticed, but we basically every year had a pro tour on Valentine Day's weekend, and I just assume it's because convention centers are maybe a bit cheaper because people don't want, like the businessmen don't want to be traveling on Valentine's Day. So Yeah, that's kind of a running joke that, we always got Pro Tour on Valentine's Day weekend, and then when it was in a nice place, it was always at the like worst kind of moment of the year weather-wise. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what else? What else did I want to Vegas? I don't know, Harry. You don't you thought about going to Vegas, right, Harry? You were thinking about it, and I was kind of like, you asked me about it. I was like, I don't think it's super reasonable, but maybe save up and go for more than like 2 days. People are asking me to. I don't know if people don't always realize that I live in France, or just assume maybe I'm a pro player, so I go to a bunch of events. And I got the question a lot, like, are you going to Vegas? I'm like, no, it's like a full day travel there and back, and jet lag, and I don't want to go just for a few days, and it's expensive.
I was gonna go, but then I've actually flown out to Germany to film and record with the Card Market. I guess for those listening right now, they can't see this amazing sign behind me, but yeah, I'm in the Card Market office right now in this like in Berlin, which is pretty cool. So I've just been playing Modern since Monday. Like today, we did a stream, and also I've recorded a few offline videos with them. After this podcast, I'm actually doing a Modern metagame breakdown. So I couldn't even go to Vegas if I really wanted to, because this trip obviously would clash. But I've never been to Vegas, to be honest. I don't know if I'm ever gonna go. Are you a big poker player, Reid? Do you play poker?
I played a lot of poker when I was younger, like I guess college age. But these days, I only play recreationally and only every once in a long while. But I did go play a poker tournament on the Wednesday before the Magic event.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I think the only reason why I'd go to Vegas is for poker, and I'm not good enough yet. I'm just kind of playing. Well, poker in the UK is closed down right now, so I don't really have an interest in it because I haven't played in a long time.
Well, you can find all kind of stakes. If you go for 2 weeks, you can just there's like every buy-in, from $50, I guess, to up to whatever. But you can go play some lower buy-ins or lower stakes games, and then if you do well in these, maybe you can take a shot in bigger games, or maybe play a satellite for an event. It's around the clock, and there's every stakes, really a lot of stakes, really.
Yeah, it's something to consider in the future, I think.
Yeah. So I guess we could talk about maybe the top 8 decks. Who ended up winning? I'm not even sure. Was it the Hardened Skills deck that ended up winning the main event? Do you know, Reid, or Infect?
My best information is that it was Rakdos Luris deck. I think I saw that was the first place deck list on some website that had this.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. So yeah, that would be Edwin Coloran. Pretty stock Rakdos Luris deck, kind of quote unquote aspiring spikes pet deck. Read the format was many copies of Torok, free copies of Torok. That's a card that's been really good against especially the Omnath files. I'm assuming it's maybe decent against Hammer Time and Subsods, the protection from white, the discard. Kind of a well-rounded deck. There was, I think, 7 different archetypes, 2 copies of Amulet Titan, and 6 other archetypes. Omnath Control, John Saga. Kind of your usual suspect, honestly. An Infect deck that's been showing up here and there online. Phyrexian Crusader, Pro White and Pro Red. Another creature that's super annoying for the Omnath deck. There's a Hardened Scales deck in the top 8. You don't see a ton of that online anymore, but 4-color creativity. And not too many big surprises. The only kind of really new deck list I've noticed is that Yorion Broadback deck. I think Indra Menguchi's been playing that deck a bit on his stream, and it put someone top 8'd online this weekend, and someone played it in the I had never seen that version before, and someone did well in the Vegas event, and someone did well online with it as well. So that's kind of the one new deck I saw. I don't know if you guys saw anything new this weekend out of the results.
I haven't.
I did see one player. Well, I mean, first of all, I was particularly excited to see Hardened Scales in the top 8. I think that deck's awesome and clearly a big winner from Urza's Saga. But I think, prior to Vegas, a lot of us would have said like, okay, the dust has settled and Colossus Hammer is the best thing to do if you want to be like artifact heavy with Urza's Saga. But hey, I mean, player making top 8 or top 4 with Hardened Scales is awesome. I saw another player go deep with like effectively just an aggro zoo deck. I think he was red-green with a bunch of the aggressive red creatures, maybe some prowess guys, Rancor, a bunch of bird spells, and I was like, wow, just that is classic pure modern for you. Just playing a bunch of your favorite aggressive cards and beating the pulp out of people. It's great.
Yeah, I have the list. It had Chandler, Goblin Guide, Swift Spear, Ragavan, couple copies of Become a Man, copies of Scale Up, so kind of Infect but with damage, and 4 copies of Rancor, 4 Boris Charm, just like all aggression, and top Sonny Aparicio was Naya aggro. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, did you play against any brews, or was it all kind of top tier decks? Because you didn't even have buys, so maybe in the first few rounds you played against.
My first opponent was basically playing like his own take on Colossus Hammer. Like it was fully powered Colossus Hammer deck with all the good stuff. But he also had Consulate Dreadnought. It's a 1 mana vehicle with crew 7, and it becomes something like a 7/11. But this was cool because you can find it with Urza's Saga and with like cranial plating and the construct tokens and stuff. It was just comically easy for him to get 7 power and start crewing it and beating me up. So I thought that was a cool touch or a cool way to customize the deck.
Yeah, it was closed deck list, right? No open deck list.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, people were not. You can tell because you'll see on Twitter people talk about their tournament and no one's sharing their deck lists. So you can kind of tell straight away when the tournament's open deck list or not. I'm assuming maybe the top 8 was open deck list. I don't know if you.
Not sure, to tell you the truth.
Oh. Cool. Yeah. I was looking at the results of the online tournaments this weekend. There was 2 challenges and a PTQ, a premiere. I'm assuming it was some kind of PTQ. I was not here this weekend. I was like a small holiday, so I didn't play much Modern at all, and I've been playing Historic with the Innistrad Championship coming up. We've got decklist due in a few days. But yeah, it was dominated by Blue-Red Murktide. Out of the 24 decks that made top 8, there was 7 copies of Blue-Red Murktide. It's kind of the trend we've been seeing in the Magic Online metagame anyways. Ever since people started playing Consider over Thought Scour and tuning the list, tuning the sideboard, that deck's just been kind of the deck to beat, I feel. Did you play against that deck at all in Vegas?
I did. I played against it once, and I was fortunate enough to win. But going in, I felt like that was one of the scariest matchups for Golgari Yawgmoth. Just the intersection of big flying creatures and like infinite cheap disruption, kill your mana dorks and stuff like that. I found it pretty scary, but I did win the one time I played against it. Huey showed up and hadn't been playing a lot of Modern. He'd been focusing mostly on Standard and Historic lately. And I just thought it was a Storm deck. Like he wanted to play the old deck that he had enjoyed in previous years. And he got paired against the Izzet Murktide deck. He came up to me after the match and he's like, what the heck is this? They've got 2 mana, 8/8s, and counterspell, and like every other card costs 1 mana. Like, is this what Modern is like right now? I said, yep, this is what Modern is like right now.
Yeah, no, that deck can feel unfair. You just can't really have bad draws. You can't really flood. You got all absurd card at absurd rates. Not for sure. I mean, I've been a fan, and deck did really well. Online, there was 14 different archetypes, though. It's kind of the same every week, just a ton of different archetypes. 24 decks that made top 8, 14 different archetypes, and yeah, it was that weird version of Yorion. There's a couple different Yorion 4-color, Yorion Omnath builds. There's kind of the stock one that Canister has been playing, kind of elementals and good cards. There's a version that plays Court of Calling, and it was a version was brought back, and it brought back in Showdown of the Skull, so that was a bit new. Also a tiny bit new was Dredge. They didn't make top 8, but there was 2 players who came in like 9th and 11th, and they were both playing Otherworldly Gaze, which is 1 blue, you mill yourself, I believe, 3 cards, and then it has a flashback of a blue and 1. So I saw that. I went back to straight away. I went to Sodex's Twitter, see if maybe that's where the list comes from, and I think maybe that's where the original lists come from. So Dredge was kind of back, and Ad Nauseam was also kind of back. There was 1 player who made top 8 was Ad Nauseam, and another one who came in 10th. But besides that, it was like, yeah, your usual, some blue-eyed control, Amulet, and, Grixis Shadow, a little Rakdos. So, yeah, that was another cool build. That was red-black was Outlurus. They were just playing Seasoned Pyromancer, 4 Grief and 4 Fury, was a ton of the 1 mana cards bring back, like, there's Malakir of Rebirth, I believe it's called. I forget the names of the 2 others, but they were playing like 9 or 10 of that effect, just trying to cheese people with Fury and Grief. And the synergy with Seasoned Pyromancer, I guess, is nice. You kind of pitch your whole hand, and then you can refill easily with Pyromancer. So there's actually a couple cool different new decks. So, yeah, Modern just super diverse.
Yeah, I've been really loving the format. I've just been playing a load of paper Magic this week, like I mentioned, but I tried playing Titan actually today, and oh my gosh, that's like the hardest deck I've ever played. I think the one thing that was surprising to me playing Titan is that Urza's Saga is used not just for constructs, but you should realize like the turn sequencing of getting Amulet and how it can actually just ramp you up to like a turn 3 kill if you play it on turn 1. And like I played just 1 match today against Blue Red Murktide on stream, and I've literally never felt dumber in my life just reading Twitch chat, then pointing out every little mistake that I make, stuff like I've never what is it? In Magic, I think a difference between like a decent Magic player and a good Magic player can sometimes be like sequencing of lands, and literally like I felt like I've learned so much just from 1 match and how important it is to sequence your lands in Titan. And I think that deck is like the hardest deck in the format right now, in my opinion, because I played a lot of Hammer Time, and I thought that deck was really hard. But after playing Titan today, I mean, I have insane amounts of respect for anyone who can play that deck well. But I still kind of strongly stand by my bias towards 4-color control in the format. I also played that on paper. And I think we don't appreciate enough how much Magic Online assists us in these like 13, 14 fetch land decks, the mana from Omnath, all these little things. Like another little thing is like flipping the top card when you get hit by Ragavan. All these little things, like, gotta get used to it again. And that's what actually made me kind of feel the fire inside me for Magic, is how you're not getting your hand held by Magic Online all the time. So that's kind of just been my week, really, just playing all the fun decks that I really like in the format. And it's nice to get back to paper Magic, to be honest. And I feel like everyone who went to Vegas is probably feeling the same.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a whole different experience. And while I do enjoy playing Magic Online and Magic Arena, the reason I fell in love with the game is playing paper Magic. Like you said, there's a bunch of additional challenges when you play paper, and certainly there's a lot of accounting to do in Vegas, and a lot of shuffling and making sure you actually execute the mechanics properly.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, like I would say I'm an online player because really that's where I spend most of my time. but like the flashing of things and like, for example, I think the biggest one is like Teferi Time Raveler, for example. If that's on the table, your cards aren't lit up on your opponent's turn, so you're more aware of it. So I feel like there's a load of things that really assist you in being a better Magic player online, as well as like the companion zone popping up. So all that, it's like it's really nice to kind of retrain that muscle, I guess you could say, of remembering all these little things that that to me is really what I find fun.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
Gab, did you play any Modern this week?
I did not, but I've been wanting to because I've been watching a bit of Wafo's stream and he's been tuning blue-white control, and I really want to just use all the hard work he's put in and play blue-white control in the next challenge. But I don't think I can play this weekend because Saturday we're having Thanksgiving, even though COVID's getting really bad in France again, so we might actually have to cancel. Hopefully not. And then Sunday, I think I'm just gonna spend the day testing with the team, since deck lists are due on Sunday night for the Innistrad Championship. It's half historic, half standard. But yeah, Wafo's been streaming, and I've been watching a bit. He's been tuning the list. His buddy, Monsieur Cafriette, won the Saturday challenge, and Wafo top-aided the Sunday challenge. They've been, I mean, especially Wafo, been just crushing these challenges. Almost feels like at least one top 8 every weekend. And they usually play pretty similar lists on a given weekend, but they had actually a few different card choices between the two of them this time around. Wafo came in. Did I make that up? That Wafo made top 8? I don't think so. Maybe it was in the premiere. Anyways, yeah, you know, it's always just little tweaks. Do you play Chalice of the Void main? Do you play Shark Typhoons? Cryptic Command, all these cards, etc. So I've been itching to play some Modern, but that'll have to wait till after the championship.
Okay, sweet. Should we would you guys like to move on to talking about, I guess, Reid's pro career?
Yeah, we could talk a bit about that. There has been an announcement. Last week they announced the World Championship for next year and how to qualify. I'm going to try and sum it up in a few words. Basically, it's going to be 32 players. Technically, anyone can qualify. Obviously, it's more likely to qualify if you're already Rivals or MPL, but the way it works is that there's 18 slots for the set championship. So there's going to be 3 arena championships this year, and the top 6 of every tournament qualify, so that's 18. Then you've got Yuta Takahashi, defending world champ, who's qualified. That's 19. Then you have the 5 best MPL/Rivals finisher, meaning that in these 3 set championships, you're going to be earning points even if you don't top 6. And whoever has the most points gets to qualify for Worlds. There's going to be 5 slots for MPL and Rivals and 8 slots for the challengers, the people who are not MPL or Rivals, but who qualify for one or more of these set championships. Meaning that technically you can be qualified for nothing right now. You qualify for the second or the third set championship, since the first one is going to be the Innistrad that's happening in a week. You top 6 that tournament and you can qualify, you'll be qualified for Worlds. And then there's a potential, what they call at-large qualifications, meaning that if there's an overlap, then the slots go to, I think, the best MPL and Rivals finishers. So instead of just 5 MPL Rivals player qualified on points, you add a slot. So for instance, if Yuta Takahashi makes top 6 of one of these tournaments, instead of it being the 7th player who qualifies, it's a slot that goes to the MPL Rivals pool. So I think they did a good job balancing the system between challengers and Rivals and MPLs. You know, I saw maybe an MPL player say, oh, that's only 5 slots for us. It's almost like we're getting punished for being MPL Rivals, but there's also way fewer of us than there are, you know, challengers, which is everyone who's basically, you know, just I don't know how to say quote unquote random, but we're not qualified for anything at the beginning of the year. And not only that, but we're the ones who profit if there's like extra slots at large. So I think it's good. Obviously, it's going to be super spiky. You have to, I don't know, these tournaments are going to have what, 400 players, and you have to top 6. But I feel like given the restrictions and the very, very low number of tournaments, I think they did a good job. I think it made sense to invite more players to the World Championship, 32 instead of 16. They haven't announced a location yet, or dates, or price pool. Probably waiting to see what happens with the COVID situation, see if they can have it in person potentially. But yeah, that was kind of the big announcements, and it was good news because a few weeks ago we weren't even sure if there were going to be another World Championship ever. They said they wanted to kind of get rid or make part was the pro system, the pro rewards in general, and kind of have more on a circuit that's event per event and not necessarily some path of qualification or some system kind of gluing it all together. But that was good news, and I like what I saw. I don't know about you, Reid.
I was this announcement made me happy for sure. I agree with you that we have a lot of restrictions that we have to work around in terms of the number of tournaments and not being able to play live all that much. But given that, I think this was a really good execution of the World Championship and creating a culminating event for this sort of bridge year in terms of organized play. I also really like that they expanded the World Championship to 32 players. Over the past handful of years, they've sort of switched back and forth between 16 and 24. And I always like it more when there are more players in Worlds. As a competitor, 16 just feels so exclusive. Like it almost, is intimidating to try to go for a qualification for Worlds. But at 24, or in this case 32, it feels more like, okay, I can make this tournament by consistently doing a good job throughout the whole year. So I think introducing those extra slots does make it feel a little bit more achievable, which is a good quality. And even the years that I've sat home and watched the World Championships, I think I would enjoy it more as a viewer if it was slightly larger. I think 16 is just too exclusive, and I'm happy to see them increasing it to 32 slots for this event.
Yeah, I agree. I talk about it every time we talk about Worlds, but I was never a fan of the small field Worlds. And part of it is maybe because I was always qualified for Worlds as a Hall of Famer before and being on the train before the Hall of Fame. And I don't know if it's because I don't get to play in the World Championship anymore, but it never really spiked my interest. I feel like it's not that exciting. All the players, they're all really good. One of the really good players gonna win, and there's not that much room for a cool storyline. I feel like the only year where I really got excited is when Huey won, because he was, he's one of my best friends, and he was in the feature match a lot, so I got to watch him play. He played incredible Magic throughout the weekend. It was just super exciting to watch. But besides
Are
that,
you saying you weren't excited the year that you yourself made top 4 of Worlds?
No, I mean, ever since they moved it to, I've ever since they changed it to like big format to small field, and I've had to watch from home.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll add even one more thing, which I think might be a subtle aspect that a lot of the viewers at home don't appreciate. But when it's only 16 players in the World Championship, or in any other event for that matter, metagaming against your individual opponents becomes a really big deal. There's always stress like, Gab and I like to practice together, but when the field is so small, we have to try to beat each other. So like, should that affect our team dynamic? And then, I know this player always likes to play mono red, so I'm going to put extra sideboard cards in my deck for mono red. And you wind up getting these sort of inbred deck lists and dynamics that wouldn't be there if it was a larger open field where you're just trying to show up with quote unquote the best deck you could build. And I think that actually can wind up detracting from the viewer experience if there's not enough diversity in the deck lists, or if things look really weird. Oh, everyone's main decking burning hands. Like, that's weird. That's not what happens at my FNM. What's going on here? Things like that. You just get weird dynamics when the field is too small.
Yeah, and while it can be interesting to think about during deck building, deck selection, it's not necessarily the most enjoyable aspect, and yeah, it kind of feels, yeah, not sure how to say, but not doesn't make for the, how do you say it? Help me out, Reid.
Well, it's just a bit, it's different. Like you said, it is interesting, but it's not the reason that everyone loves Magic. It's not what we're here for.
For me, Worlds is just an event that you're watching like the best in the world play, as well as, though, I think my favorite aspect of Worlds is trying to see someone that no one really knows that's playing good against the best in the world. I think that's something that kind of happens in other games as well. That kind of I would love to see. And if they have 32 slots, then I mean, you're going to have a lot of new names that aren't really known to a wider range of the public. So I'm really happy about the change myself.
Yeah. There's also just, you kind of get all the info at once, right? When it's 16 players, you basically have all the deck lists right away. You can go through them in like 1 or 2 minutes, and you've seen the field. Whereas when it was 300, 400 players, you kind of see, maybe someone's doing well on day one, but then they're not doing so well, and then someone else soars into the lead, and you see another deck as surprises. Deck emerge, more storylines, underdogs. I don't know. It's just so many more things going on.
Right. I mean, think about how much fun we had talking about the cool decks that broke out at MTG Vegas, and you just don't get any of that in a 16-player World Championship because everyone's playing it tight. Sticking to established decks, and a lot of times there's just not that much diversity in terms of what people show up with.
Yeah. Yeah, anyways, that was kind of the good and exciting news, I thought, anyways, and I think it was pretty well received, and so far, it feels like they did a good job. What about you, Reid? Was the future of Magic kind of uncertainty? I saw you actually, you've been streaming. I saw you started a YouTube channel too. Was that little shuffling tutorial, shuffling video? Do you think about that stuff a lot? Do you have plans? Do you kind of know what you want to do in the next few years?
Sure. Well, my plan for the immediate, for the foreseeable future is just to stick with my arrangement with Team CFB and writing for CFB Pro. So I did create a YouTube channel, but for now, all my stuff will still be going up on the Channel Fireball YouTube. But yeah, I really like my arrangement with them, and it's I'm grateful that it sort of like stabilizes my life and stabilizes my income, so that if I have a bad year in terms of not being in a pro league or not earning a lot of prize money, I could still survive and continue playing Magic, which I do love. So yeah, I feel like I'm gonna see, still be here and see what the future brings, and hopefully there will be some cool events to play in, even if there's not explicitly a Magic Pro League or a Pro Players Club.
How many hours a day do you work, you would say, between the CFB Pro content creation, the deck guides, and stream?
Well, it's a huge range. The good thing about my job is it's somewhat of a flexible schedule. So if I have something going on and I just can't work at all on Tuesday, then that means I can get my work done on Monday or on Wednesday. So there's some flexibility, but everything I do is related to Magic in some way. So it's always either I'm streaming, making a video, writing, doing some background research to help me with my writing. And all that stuff adds up to be, I would say, a full-time job, like probably 35, 40 hours on a normal week, and then if I'm actually competing in a tournament on the weekend, you add the weekend days on top of that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot because you guys put on a ton of content. I'm kind of impressed. I do a tiny bit. I just make one video a week because I didn't love the writing part. It kind of stressed me out, and it just took too much time, and it was not super easy for me. So when you guys kind of embarked on the CFB Pro journey, I decided to kind of opt out of the whole deck guide and stuff. But it must take, I don't know, does it, I don't know. I'm kind of impressed anyways. Someone who, I mean, I see myself as a tiny bit lazy on that side. You know, I do like the stream, and I try to be consistent with the stream, but yeah.
Well, it's like anything else. You get used to it. Like, I remember the first article that I ever wrote back in like 2011 or something. It took me like 7 or 8 or 9 hours to write the whole thing, and I got paid $25. And that's not a very good return on investment. But over the years, you just get you get in the swing of things, and you learn how to do things more efficiently. And it's just a matter of getting a feel for it. And I still find these days, like, a lot of times the hardest thing about writing is finding a topic and getting that first sentence down, like actually starting writing. But then once you get in the zone, you can, I love talking about Magic more than anything. So I can churn out a lot of writing pretty quickly once I can get in that focused on state.
Did you ever look up writing techniques? I remember when I was struggling, like one, for example, I felt like was a good tip was when you don't know really how to start, you just start writing, not necessarily like whole paragraphs and stuff, but you start writing stuff, just whatever, and kind of comes together.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I'll do that, just like, oh, these are some interesting disjointed like things that I want to write about, and I'll just write that, and then I'll sort of like start to get a picture for what my article wants to look like and restructure it so that it makes sense and flows and stuff like that. But yeah, just basically any way that you can get yourself started is helpful.
Yeah, because technically we're teammates. I hope one day we actually get to I mean, we do test together. I guess we do compete together. We test together and prepare for the tournaments. But the whole team was the jerseys and showing up at events together.
Yeah, man, we were so excited about the launch of Team CFB, and it was like, oh, the great big unveiling of our team jerseys and stuff. But then all the events were canceled, so it took on a different form. Yeah. But I agree with you. It would be cool to get to show up and make appearances at events as Team CFB.
Okay, well, I guess kind of something that people are also interested in is it's not really public, or it's quite hard to discover, what's happening with MPL and Rivals, especially with all the changes this year. You told me before the podcast that you have been, I guess, demoted to Rivals League. Has that kind of changed anything in terms of going into next year for you, or are you not bothered by it?
Well, it would be wrong to say I'm not bothered by it, because it was a pretty disappointing end of the season for me. Because if you flash back to the start of the year, you start the year in MPL, and basically the best thing that can happen is you go to Worlds and stay in the MPL, and the worst thing that can happen is you get demoted to Rivals. So I worked hard all year, and I've had a few good weekends in the league play weekends, and I was still relevant in the league right up until the end. And then I lost the last round in the MPL gauntlet or whatever, and that was that. I got the worst outcome that I could have gotten for the year. So in that sense, it was a little bit of like a high stress situation. But looking at the big picture, Rivals is still good because I get invited to all the set championships this year. So I have as good of a chance of putting up a good year and making the world championship as anyone in the MPL has. So that's a great spot to be in. And I would say the it was more important to me, and it always is more important to me, to be able to compete at the World Championship rather than just have some like, cool sounding status that I can write on paper. I could be challenger, rivals, MPL, whatever, as long as I'm actually getting to show up at the tournaments and compete against the other best players, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned there that it was high stress for you. Something for me is like I guess I've never been to the Pro Tour as a viewer. I expect you to never, feel pressure in a high stakes spot. Do you still feel nervous when you're on the top tables at the PT and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that the nerves never go away for me. It's just that you get used to them and you learn how to play through them and not be, rattled or give up or allow yourself to walk into a disaster. But yeah, I was kind of a wreck for the last couple of months of the previous season. Like, it just felt like like I said, I worked hard all year, and then the whole like outcome of that year of work was going to be resting on the last couple of events, and I found that to be really stressful. But I guess that's always in some way how it's going to be with competition.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that's solely to do with the pressure of like the MPL system, or do you think the fact that Magic has basically been online this year, you're kind of like on your own, I guess, in the physical sense?
I would say both. Certainly the environment is stressful. I know Gab has talked a lot about this, but it's, it's a much different experience sitting home and playing a 16-player tournament or league weekend from your bedroom as compared to going out for the Pro Tour or Grand Prix. And one big difference is that when you go to one of those big events, like say a 500-player Pro Tour, it's hard to have any expectations. You're like, you know what, I'm one of 500 really, really good players, and the most likely thing is that I just won't win, and that's fine. But I'm here to like put my best foot forward and take my shot. Whereas when you have an exclusive event like a 16-player league weekend, you more have the mental state of like, wow, I can't blow it. Like, if I have to hold it together and make sure I avoid disaster. And that's for me at least. Maybe your mileage may vary on this, but for me, that's a much more stressful mind state. Like, I don't mind showing up and playing a long shot, but it does bother me when I'm sitting there and I'm afraid of losing. Like, man, I can't lose this match, or else I'm going to be out of the MPL. Like, that's a really stressful feeling to have hanging over you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think one of the things is that we realize how fortunate we are to be in that spot in the first place. And what you said, we feel like if we do poorly, we squandered shot at staying in the league, a lot of money. I think one thing that adds to the stress is the uncertainty of the structure, and especially for this year, the thought that maybe that was the last big prize pool tournament ever, $1 million for Worlds, and we might never have that again. So that added to the pressure and the stress, not knowing if there's going to be, there's not going to be an MPL anymore, but is there going to be a good system tournament where you can still kind of make a living? They said that's not the goal, but they did say they wanted a quote unquote a robust circuit and series of events. So I think that added a lot to the stress of this year, knowing that that's maybe our last shot at maybe not life-changing money for some of us, but still very, very relevant sums of money, and competing against the best, maybe the last chance to be the world champion. Now we know that's not the case. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the uncertainty is big.
Cool. Well, I have no more questions, really. Have you got anything, Gab?
No more questions, Your Honor. Not that comes to mind. I don't know, Reid, if there is something that you want to talk about just literally anything? Or
No, I mean, I would just say we've got this Innistrad set championship coming up in. It's going to be two weekends from now, like 11 days from now or something like that, 9 days from now. And yeah, I encourage everybody to watch or engage with that tournament, as it's going to be, you know, the highest stakes event we've seen in competitive Magic for a while. And I think it's going to be cool to see what the new year brings.
yeah, now the formats are interesting. Historic is incredible right now. So many decks, you can play so many decks. People ask me what the top tier decks are. I've been playing Historic and feel like there's 10, almost 15 decks that you could play right now and probably do okay with. And I think that Standard isn't super settled either. There hasn't been tons of tournaments. There have been a few, but I think that even in Standard you could have a few surprise, even though we see a lot of mono white, mono green, blue red decks. It should be a sweet tournament, and I'm curious to see if by the time people submit deck lists and we see the field, if it's going to be a bit less diverse, especially in Historic, or if it's really going to be like, you know, no deck that's more than 10% of the field or something, and you see like 15 different well-represented archetypes.
That would be really awesome, because we haven't seen that dynamic in a while in competitive Magic, where things are so diverse and uncertain.
Yeah, and the ladder it's pretty competitive, but it's so overwhelming, honestly, especially for Historic. I've been playing, but it feels like one step forward, two step back, or you're not really making any progress. And seriously test a matchup on the ladder. I mean, you get some data, you get a feel for matchups, feel for a deck, but there's just so many different decks. It feels a bit like maybe the old modern pre maybe when we tested for modern PTs, when there was not a ton of challenges and a ton of people playing modern back in the day, or not as much. Feels a bit that way for Historic.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, so what should we do? Should we move on, Harry? Maybe Life on the Line?
Yeah, sure, let's do it. So I guess for those new listening and don't know what Life on the Line is, it's a section of the podcast where there's a theoretical tournament tomorrow. If you win the event, you live. You lose, you die. Got to bring a deck list from every form we talked about today. I guess it's just going to be modern. I typically start off, because I'm always easy, so I'm going to go 4-color control, Omnath control, obviously. I think Solitude is really well positioned right now. It feels like basically just like Force of Will in the format. And I feel like people, while at the start of Modern Horizons 2, it felt like everyone was playing on Holy Heat. I feel like no one's really playing on Holy Heat, so my Planeswalker's always sticking around. So I really like the position of the deck, and I think that it's pretty good against the field from my testing. What about you, Gab?
I'm going to go... It's close for me between Blue-White Control and Living End. I think the sideboards are still somewhat hostile to Living End. But I think I would go for Blue-White Control this weekend. Just copy whatever Wafo's been playing, basically.
Okay, sweet. What about you, Reid?
I'd go with Golgari Yawgmoth. I had a really good experience with it in Vegas. I think it's a bit underrated, or not represented proportional to how strong it is. I think it's got pretty good matchups against a lot of the field, and remains customizable with good sideboard options. And yeah, the more practice you get, the more you like it.
Okay, sweet. And we have a new segment on the podcast from when you last joined. We now do the Price is Right, obviously with a card from Card Market. Shout out sponsor. So I think it's only logical to do Yawgmoth this week, Gab. What do you think?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was thinking the same thing.
Awesome. So basically what we're going to do is you just got to think of a price in your head. I'll count down from 3 and just say it out loud, or you can write it on a piece of paper. And the price is in euros, by the way, because I know you're in the US.
Okay. Now, wait a minute.
We don't do the whole gaming thing where you have to be under, though. It's whoever gets closer. So there's,
But these days, there's so many different versions of every card. There's the old border. There's the alternate art. There's foil. Like how are we picking what version of Yawgmoth?
We always pick the regular art.
Okay, yeah, let's just do regular art.
Remind me, Yawgmoth is a mythic from Modern Horizon 2?
Modern Horizon 1.
Mythic from Modern Horizon 1. Okay, got it.
I'm going to do...
All right, I have my guess. Reid might have an edge, though, because he literally had to buy Yawgmoth.
Literally had to buy them, yep.
But yeah, Card Market's probably a little cheaper than the US vendors. But all right, I got my guess.
Okay.
All right, reluctant. Yeah, I think so.
3, 2, 1.
All right, €6.
20 euro.
What?
I said 20.
I said 25.
Oh, I'm way on. I just feel like Yawgmoth's just not that played, and wow, €6. I'm way.
Okay, the price trend in the past 30 days, the average price is €15 on Card Market.
Oh, so Reid gets it right.
All I'm saying is I heard that Reid got scammed for buying them in person. Card Market.
How much did you pay for your Yawgmoth, Reid, in Vegas?
Well, every dealer only had one. I think the cheapest I got was $20. I think they were all between $20 and $30. But one of them, I think, notably had like the old border, which is a little more expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that range.
So $20 is about €15. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Seems fair. And I guess, to finish off the episode, Reid, where can the listeners find you on the internet?
Well, all my written and video content goes up on channelfireball.com. I also stream sometimes, though I've been a little bit off schedule, but twitch.tv/readerrabbit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about the YouTube channel you started? Is that something you have plans for, or?
No, that just if anything comes up that I want to get out there really quickly, I could throw it up on there. But the plan is still for my content to go up on the Channel Fireball YouTube channel.
Yeah, because I saw it was also on the Channel Fireball page. What about you, Harry?
Oh, me? Oh, you can find me in Berlin this week in Card Market Studio, but
living the life.
I'm trying to do a video week on my YouTube. I'm trying to get back in it. My university is kind of leveled out. I'm also getting a month break soon, so I should be back on my personal content grind. But I think there'll be 2 videos a week out for the next few weeks by me on Card Market's channel as well, because a lot of people still don't know that I'm on their channel, so check it out there. But what about you, Gab?
Yeah, twitch.tv/yellowhat. You can find the VOD of this podcast recording, or you can find our podcast on your usual apps, and I stream pretty much every day. I also have a YouTube channel where my Twitch VODs go slightly edited. I've tried to start making videos too. I kind of did a few, and haven't done much for the past week, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that, and on Twitter too, at Gab Nassif, and Reid is at Reid Duke on Twitter, I believe. We also have Pat, who wasn't with us this week, but at get_smart everywhere on the internet.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention why he wasn't here this week in the intro. There was too much to get through. But yeah, Pat wasn't here this week because of complications with work, and also Teddy, for those interested. But I guess, honestly, to finish the episode, as always, Reid, thank you so much for spending time and waking up early to hang out with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was good fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reid. Reid is actually moving. He made time for us. I thought it would be really fun to hear his Vegas stories, perspective, all that, and yeah, just super happy we could have you on. As nice catching up too.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again.
Awesome. And I guess thank you everyone who's made it this far into the episode. We appreciate you listening and supporting us, and we'll catch you guys next time, hopefully with Pat.
Yeah, take care, everyone.